Hello, welcome to P Cube, the one and only Pokemon Cube podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Martin, brought to you with co-host Connor Lavelle. So we have a very, very special episode here today because it's actually the first time we've actually live streamed a podcast episode. So if you're here joining us on Twitch, hello, welcome, glad to have you. But if you're listening to this on YouTube and Spotify, expect a pretty normal podcast. But we have a very special one. We're actually joined with special guests, master graphic designer, coming all the way from Brazil, Davi De Sousa. Davi, how are you doing?
Hello. It's not every day that you get to appear on the podcast that you listen to, so I'm very, very excited to be here today.
We're glad to have you, and I'm sure if anyone here has listened to us on YouTube, any of the P3 series that we've done before, Davi has been on the commentary many times. Davi's also done a lot of the graphics you're going to see today. Davi has made also, you made the Cube Kogo logo too, right?
Yep, sure did.
So if you're wondering where all that spice comes from, it all comes from Davi. So glad to have you. You're a huge help, so glad to have you here. Today, though, we are going to be talking about the basically a retrospective on the Cube League season. So it's been a really fun one. It's been really cool to follow the Cube League as the podcast has grown over the as I guess it's been about 8 months now. And if you've listened to the podcast before, you're probably familiar with the Cube League coming up each episode as Connor and I talk about how we're doing and what we're seeing. So it's a fun thing for us to follow, and also a huge part of the competitive Cube environment. So competitive Cube doesn't really exist outside of the Cube League. I mean, I'm sure maybe there are competitive groups that play, but it's really hard to put on like a 30-person tournament. So as far as like, Cube enthusiasts and people that follow the Cube and how it evolves, this is a really important piece of information. So that we like to see. It really does show us a lot of, how cubes really develop over a really short period of time. And we've run several cubes throughout the Discord with a lot of people playing in these. So we have maybe like 30 people, I think, per Cube League. Connor, you can correct me on that. But it's something that I think is really cool. We actually, if you aren't aware, we have Champions Cube coming up this weekend. So that's like our world championships of Cube. So we thought this would be a fun way to interact with not only our listeners, but also showcase a lot of the really outstanding decks people have made over the year. It's been like 8 months, but you know what I'm trying to say. So we're going to be looking through that. We're going to be looking back at each cube that's been ran, talk about the cube, talk about what we liked, and really interesting stuff that's going on there, because each cube that's selected for these leagues also is really well balanced and has really interesting stuff to it that makes it sort of eye-catching. That's really how they get picked for these things. So really cool to showcase those, as well as the decks that are winning, that have won those leagues. So it'll be a fun retrospective. Can't wait to show you guys. But first, let's get into some announcements. I already said it, but the big event, the big dance, Champions Cube, is coming up this weekend, starting at 9 a.m. You can catch the stream, though, at 11:30 a.m. with the draft. So make sure to tune in. If you can't play, or if you're going to your pre-release, make sure to watch us on Twitch. You can catch all the action, as well as some VODs will be up on the YouTube channel as well. We'll have the draft, as well as some of the games. Probably the top 8, but we'll see. Outside of that, Connor, any other news that we want to share?
I think Champions Cube is the big one right now. We've really been putting a lot of work into it. We've hit some hurdles this time, but everything is back on track, and just really excited to show that off.
Right, and if you're listening to this and you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, we are 2 subs away. So if you're watching this, you're not subbed, you can do us a favor, but we're so close to that. But moving forward, let's go right into our Crack-a-Pack. So this time, the other 2 don't know what the Crack-a-Pack is. Usually it's the other way around. So let's get right into it. So this Crack-a-Pack comes from Delta Eevee, the cube for Champs Cube. I'll go through card by card. I'll basically be playing the role of Connor in this cube, in this Crack-a-Pack. To start out, we have Energy Removal 2, basically Crushing Hammer. Professor Juniper, discard your hand, draw 7, just like Professor's Research. POW Hand Extension, which is a lot like Counter Catcher, except it has an added bonus effect where you could choose to do to move an energy from the active to the bench. We have Stormfront Save Our Life with Overeager. It basically allows you to go first if you start in the active. We have an Anorith, I don't remember what set it's from, with Fast Evolution. We have a Pupitar with Hard Shell Evolution. We have a Alolan Vulpix with Beacon. Skyla, the common trainer, gets you trainer card. Eric's Hospitality, which is not quite Steven's Advice, but allows you to do the same effect, except you have to have 4 cards in hand. And then we also have Water Psychic Holland's energy. So, Davi, I'm gonna let you go first since you're our guest here. I look at this pack. What is catching your eye here? What do you think you would be taking for your first pick?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I look at this pack, I'm looking at the Juniper, the Sableye, and the Alolan Vulpix. There are some other strong cards here, the Paul and the Skyla, and the Erica is also pretty good, but not as high priority as those other cards. And then it's a question of what do you really want to play on any deck? Alolan Vulpix is one of the best setup attackers like ever, probably. Attacking for free is so strong, and it doesn't use resources from your deck or from your hand. It just gets you Pokemon. And if your opponent doesn't like take your hand away, doesn't hand attack you, you're good. You're golden, right? This Sableye is also pretty good. It has the same thing. Lets you attack for free. Use a supporter from the deck. It's not as good because you have to like waste a supporter, right? Sometimes you want to waste the supporter, like a Bridget turn 1 with Impersonate is so strong. And the Juniper is just a Juniper, right? There's no way this card doesn't get into your deck. I'm probably gonna think a lot about this, but I'm either between Juniper and Alolan Vulpix. We've seen this Vulpix like win so many games. Charizard Ex, the winner of the first Champions Cube, said that he won many of these games just sticking Vulpix to the active, getting his setup while his opponent didn't get the same speed. And then he won. He won everything. So I'll maybe go with what he told me and go with the Vulpix, but I wouldn't look at you funny if you go for this Juniper.
Yeah, I'm very much in agreement. I was having the same sort of dilemma when I first looked at this pack because you're right, they have there's so much benefit to both cards. The Juniper allows you to stay consistent, and the discard effect allows you for outstanding deck thinning. It's a very aggressive card. The Sableye also, like you were saying, for sure let you, get a basic set. If you get like a Bridget, it combos so well with different supporters like that. Something like even like a Steven's Advice also can be really good. Or Steven's Resolve, sorry, excuse me, letting you get 3 cards from your hand. But I'm with you. I am also leaning towards the Vulpix. I've had decks that shouldn't have come together get carried by this one card just because Beacon is such a strong setup attack. Granted, you are vulnerable to things like Judge, Marnie, especially Marnie, and of the sorts, but the fact that it's a free attack, and I think that's very important on setup Pokemon because you can commit an energy to an attacker. It allows you to keep tempo better. I think it's just an outstanding starting Pokemon, but I definitely can understand the Juniper as well. Juniper's also very good. And Connor, I would love to hear what you think of this pack. What would you be taking here?
This pack is kind of a killer. I mean, it is so difficult. So you guys have already covered the highlights pretty well. The 3 cards that I'm looking at here are Juniper, Sableye, and Vulpix. I am a little bit higher on Sableye, I think, than you guys are, just because Impersonate not only can be a very powerful setup attack, but it can also be a very powerful disruptive one if your start is really strong. Otherwise, you can go into something like a Cyrus's Initiative, a Judge, a Marnie, really start your opponent off with a very difficult game. So in general, I like Sableye a lot. Alolan Vulpix is incredibly powerful, of course. It is a very, very good setup-based support Pokemon. So if you're playing a Stage 2 deck, especially if you're playing a deck with multiple Stage 2s, something like Ampharos, Sceptile, decks that want to have several Stage 2s and play at once, Vulpix is amazing. And Juniper, of course, best supporter in the pack, one of the best supporters ever made, and a card that I'm never upset to have. So, given that this is pick 1, Sableye is very appealing to me because that unlocks all these crazy powerful plays like Cyrus's Initiative. Any disruptive supporter can be amazing with Sableye, and Sableye is going to be better in like an EV deck, something that's more tempo oriented than Vulpix is, where I'm not really going to get value out of a Vulpix in an Evolution deck because I don't need that much search. But with Sableye, either I can patch up my start with Impersonate, maybe get a Collector, something to that effect. Or if my start is already pretty good and I want a powerful turn 1 play, then I can Impersonate for Disruption. Whereas with Vulpix, I don't have that disruptive angle. So it's a really hard call for me. I think in the lead up to Champions Cube, I have a couple of setup-based decks that I would be pretty inclined to play. So I'm very on the fence, but I think I would go for the Vulpix. But I would say in general that Sableye is a better Pack 1 pick.
I think that's actually, you bring up something very interesting there, and that is like the direction a draft could go just based on some things you take here. So that's something I didn't quite think about. You know, I kind of want to talk about that. The impersonate Sableye, you're right, definitely does combo into stuff like Sarsonis is a great example. So I mean, how do you value this pack then? If like maybe the Vulpix is like maybe like a Cleffa or something. So do you think maybe like the setup part of Vulpix makes it more appealing than like just like the general consistency that like a Cleffa would offer?
Yeah, I would definitely take Sableye over Vulpix or over Cleffa. Cleffa is nice, but it's very likely to be knocked out immediately. Vulpix has a little bit more health on it, so a lot of the time it takes a hit in the early game. Not always. You could eat like an evolutionary fire from a Flareon and be knocked out right away. I'm sure there are several ways to knock out a Vulpix on turn 2, but it's a lot less common than 30 damage. 30 damage, pretty easy to pull off. Sableye would definitely jump up there. One thing that I really like about Vulpix is that it's extremely resilient to disruption. And I know that's kind of funny to say because it puts the Pokemon in your hand and they can get shuffled away. But Vulpix, your hand gets shuffled away. Vulpix isn't knocked out. You just search for him again. No big deal. Sableye, if you don't have that same supporter effect again, then it's going to be difficult to pull off the same effect. So if you go for a collector, hand gets shuffled away, don't have another collector, you're out of luck. But on a Cleffa is just so much more vulnerable to so many things. Cleffa is not really resilient to disruption in the same way that Vulpix is. Vulpix, you're getting exactly what you want back. Cleffa, you're just kind of rolling the dice. I also don't value Cleffa as highly as these two because Cleffa's effect is a lot more general, whereas Vulpix and Sableye, you're finding exactly what you want. This cube has a lot of draw in the Pokemon line, so Ascension can often get you out of a dead hand, even if you don't have any supporters or anything. And that's basically all Cleffa does, is get you out of a dead hand. So Vulpix can do that and more most of the time in this cube. So the advantages, I would say, of Vulpix over Cleffa are pretty significant, and it would definitely be the least of the setup Pokemon in here. I would even take the Juniper over a Cleffa.
You know what? Well said. As always, Connor, you've given us something to think about walking away from this pack. So if you have any thoughts on this pack, listening to this, maybe on YouTube or Spotify, definitely let us know. And YouTube, you can let us know in the comments. Spotify, I don't really know what you do. Maybe you like send us an email. But that said, and if you're watching this live, please let us know in chat what you're thinking. Maybe you change your mind. Listen to what maybe some of the stuff Connor said, or maybe you have some thoughts on Sableye itself. Let us know. We'd love to hear that. But I think that's going to do that for this segment here. Stick around. When we come back, we're going to be going through the Cube League cubes and talking about what cubes have been ran, all the best decks, a huge retrospective. So it'll be very cool. Stick around. We'll be right back. Looking at this, we are talking all about the Cube League and as a whole this past season. So we ran, I think, 4 cubes in total. It kind of all flew by. The Cube League started in January, I think mid-January, if I'm not wrong. Is that right? Mid-January?
You are correct.
Okay.
Yeah, probably.
It feels like a decade ago, but all the way up till now. And this has been a really fun series. For me personally, this has been, I think, the first time I've been able to follow the Cube League all the way through. As I kind of came back to the Discord in January, and it's been really interesting to see the storylines that have developed. We saw even, quite a few players really emerge out of the Cube Discord as time has gone on. We've seen a lot of improvements, a lot of honestly busted decks that come out of this, and a lot of really cool cubes. So, and the reason most that this is really important to talk about is that I think Cube League as a whole plays a big part in the information sharing of Cube. There's not really an event or a way to really judge or compete really rather in a cube environment competitively. I know that sounds a bit redundant, but what Cube League offers is a way to bring like 30 players into one draft, which normally you can't feasibly do. I guess if you had just a really big cube, you could do that, but this takes multiple versions of the same cube. We have like a pod of like, if we had like 18 people, we could have like 3 pods of 6 players drafting the same cube, and allows a cube meta to really thrive. So I think from like an analytical standpoint, and also as information sharing goes, I think Cube League's in a very important event, very important process that happens that really, I think, grows the amount of knowledge share we have on Cube. I don't know, guys. Do you have any opinions on that?
I definitely agree.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. No,
Nope.
you go first.
No, I was gonna say that you once, Connor, made, I don't know if it was in the podcast or like on a normal conversation, you talked about how one Cube League was like a few months or even a year of just normal testing, right? Because we play so many games on so many different rounds and pods, and it's unfeasible to think about this on a normal cube. Like me running my cube for my friends on once a month or once every 2 months. While here it's like 30 games a week or something like that if we're counting individual games. So this is like the biggest stress test that any cube can go for. And we have some cubes that have been played like multiple times through either Champions Cube and Cube League or Cube League and Team Showdown. So some of these cubes are like really, really, really well tested.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up exactly that. I did the math before. I don't have the numbers on hand right away. I'm sure I could produce them again if Andrew stalls for time. But in general, a regular cube, if we count one side as an individual game, because I think that there is value to breaking games into what each side does, because each deck is a totally different deck in the same cube. So you're getting information about that deck, how well it performs, how well the archetype performs, what it needs, things like that. In a way that you really wouldn't get in standard. You know, you're not going to gain some huge revelation about how Ice Rider Calyrex functions based on one game. In Cube, that can be a different case. You can absolutely do that. So, in an average 8-man cube run, if every single person plays every single one of their rounds, which is not that common. I know probably everyone who's run cubes in real life and run a 3-round cube has had many people drop, and I think that's just a natural experience of the event. But assuming everybody plays, you have 24 sides, so 24 individual games that you have tests for. In Cube League, you have 30 in one round. And then you have 5 rounds, and then you have a top 8. So what that ultimately amounts to is months and months of testing. And this is assuming you run your cube every week. You have the equivalent of months and months of testing in one single Cube League. And of course, you have the advantage of having highly experienced cube players playing your cube, whereas maybe your local group would take a while to discover something that was very broken. And I will say there's a lot of fun to that discovery process, and you should not deprive that of your local group. But it has a lot of value if you're trying to get to the most balanced place you possibly can. And in Cube League, you just get this huge array of people, you get this huge array of drafts, all happening at once, and you really have a huge competition between the different archetypes as well, because most of the time in Cube League, at least every archetype is going to be drafted once, often multiple times, and then it will ultimately come to a winner. So you can see what stands above the rest, how well it does that. If that player just drafted excellently and built a deck that was really great with that archetype, or if maybe there were some archetypes that needed to be adjusted. And I don't think I've ever seen a cube run for Cube League that didn't need to be adjusted in some way afterward. Solar Cars Cube did not have many changes after Cube League, I know, but that's a very rare case. And I would say that almost always the Cube League finds whatever balance issues exist in your cube and makes them apparent.
Yeah, I think that's one of the craziest things about Cube League is that it is the ultimate stress test on your cube, and it's like very hard to replicate, as you just said. So it's an event I'm really happy is continuing past the pandemic. I think an event that will continue past the pandemic because, like I said earlier, it's a really hard event it's really hard to get 30 people in the same room drafting the same cube, you know. So I'm always really happy to see what the results are from these cube leagues, and hopefully as we're going through these, you guys can also see the growth of a lot of these cube decks that we've seen, and like a lot of the the brokenness of the cubes come out really, and that's a good thing. You see like some of the best defined decks come out in these leagues, so hopefully that's showcased here as we go through them. Without further ado, we're actually going to go in reverse order. So we're going to start with the most recent cube and then work our way back. So the first cube we have here is not only the one and only Best Pal coin flip cube. So for those that aren't familiar with this cube, it is all based on coin flips, which might sound kind of annoying if you think of cards like Crushing Hammer, but in the sense that coin flips make the game very unfun and unfair at times, the coin flips actually are now in your control. So the huge thing with this cube is that all the coin flips are decided by the player whose turn it is. So you look at something like Crobat here with Carry Off, or even Double Cross. Double Cross allows you to flip 2 coins, do 40 damage for each. That actually is just 80 damage if you want. Or if you wanted them both to be tails, you get the Confusion and Poison. So that's a lot of how this cube plays. It allows you to manipulate coin flips in whatever is the most advantageous way. And it adds a lot of depth to the gameplay. No surprises there. It gives you a lot of options. But my favorite thing about this cube is that it allows you to visit cards that are generally just bad. Like this Crobat here from Skyridge is pretty bad, and I don't think you would play it in a lot of decks because of its coin flips reliance. But in this cube, it's quite good. It has a solid 3 for 80 and a really solid ability, allowing you to basically look at your opponent's hand and shuffle back in Pokemon. And you wouldn't get that experience in most other cubes. So the added factor of coin flips are now in your control really changes the dynamics of this cube. So fellas, feel free to sound off whatever thoughts you have on this cube. I'd love to hear it. I'll start with Davi.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I really like this cube. It's one of the most fun cubes I've played, and I really like this aspect of cube. For me, I really like the competitive aspect, but more than that, Night Teleporter is a card that I read and I said, oh, I'm gonna put it in my cube. And then I played it once and was like, oh, it's out forever. It's never coming back. It's terrible. But in this cube, that card is amazing. You can just trade your hand for like your Juniper or your Oak or whatever else you need. I don't know, Polygons in this cube, right? So you trade your hand for a backup. I think I played that on my deck. So this cube is just crazy on that front of like, maybe you have a group of very experienced players. They have played a lot of formats, but then you come up with this and they're like, what does this card do? I've never seen this. And like, oh no, this is bad. Oh wait, coin flips are heads. Oh no, this is great. And everyone had this moment on this cube. I really like it. And like so many things. The Rocket's Minefield, moving your damage counters, not moving, but creating damage counters for the unknown deck is really fun also. Not the unknown deck specifically, but that interaction, I think it's really cool. And like everything else, the Arcanine from one of the sets, I think it's Skyridge, Energy Recharge, kind of a Poké Power on like a normal cube, but here it guarantees you 3 energy. So it gets 3 for 70 with no energy on it. Like it's just solid. So it's really fun to have a cube like this. I have so many good memories with this cube of either testing it, because we tested this a lot, and just playing on the league. Me and Zach Crackler had like a really cool 3-game set. I was playing Sharpedo, he was playing Warring. That was like an experience that I wouldn't have on a normal cube, just because of the nature of the craziness of this cube.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up about the reading a card and then having to like do a double take, because Fortress was something that I remember drafting for the first time and not really considering the coin flip effects. And usually when I see an e-reader card, I'm like conditioned to believe it's bad in most cases. But in this case, I saw a Scatter Bomb and I'm like, wow, this card's terrible. But wait, they're both heads. So I'm doing 40 plus 20 spread. That seems really good. And I love how that one aspect of just changing the coin flip mechanic completely alters your perception of each card. And I've even found myself going into other drafts thinking that like, oh, we all take this Pokeball. I'm like, wait, nope, this is not coin flip cube, so not a good pick. But in this cube, Pokeball's great because it's just search out any Pokemon. Connor, what are your thoughts on coin flip cube? I know we talked about this a lot going into the league. And I know we did a podcast episode on it, but any thoughts now? Anything changed over the course of the league for you?
This is definitely the most unique cube I've ever played.
Definitely.
It feels completely different. The tempo is completely different. It's just a wholly different experience. And that's incredible, I will say. Having played Cube for years and years now, having played many cubes through the Discord, playing cubes that were built by people all over the world, this is the most unique one because you see so many cards and so many effects that you never see otherwise. And that's already been talked about. I'm not going to focus too much on that, but I will also say that has created a really unique environment where I've been calling this a low-high power cube, and in the same respect, or a high-low power cube, in the same respect that you'd say mid-high or mid-low, where this cube is low power by all numbers. 90 HP stage 2s, attacks that deal 30, 40, 50 damage on line toppers, but it is ripping fast. Decks have to set up extremely quickly. Decks have to execute their game plan very quickly. Decks just have to go off. They have to do something. Really starting on turn 2 or 3, and you don't have a lot of time to get to that. And it's just such an interesting experience because you're playing with all these cards that in any other cube would be terrible. And there are plenty of cards that would be good in other cubes in this cube, but specifically here, there are just cards, like the Fortress that Andrew mentioned, the entire Unknown setup. It's just incredible. The whole thing is incredible. I had a great time with this cube. I think it is still unexplored in the sense that, Al could make any number of changes and the cube could be drastically altered just because of that. So also a lot of changes happened because of the Cube League, as always. But very excited to see where this cube goes. Definitely will keep an eye on it. I strongly recommend everybody who has the ability to play it at least once. Because it's a totally different experience from everything you may have played before if you haven't tried it. And just great job to Best Pal Al for putting it together.
Yeah, it's certainly the most unique cube I definitely have ever experienced. So it's like a breath of fresh air. It's like not that there's anything wrong. You see people like my cube generally is kind of boring in since it doesn't have any exciting rules, but then you run into cubes like this coin flip cube, and it's like a whole new game because like everything has different value now that the coin flips are in effect. So really cool, really happy we were able to run this. Speaking of the unknowns, I would like to transition over at the winning list from this cube league, and that is JL's unknown box. And we've talked about this on the podcast a little bit, and especially in like a previous live stream where this deck did not make any sense to myself, at least. And I had to have, I think Connor explained it to me that what this deck was actually trying to do. But it's a really sick deck. It's got tons of like donking potential, as well as like it has, I think JL's list has game plans after that. Connor, can you just explain this list to the listeners and the viewers that might not understand what they're looking at here?
I have extensive knowledge of this list because I had the pleasure of losing to it. I use the word pleasure lightly because, losing, but it really just does feel completely out of your hands. The goal of the deck, especially this build, is to start off with a Rocket's Minefield Gym. And JL has 2 reserve tickets, a Scott, a computer search to find that card, and a Night Teleporter, but I would be surprised if Night Teleporter ever hit that card. But lots of ways. Even though it's a one-of stadium, stadiums are not normally that searchable. This deck has the outs. Start off with a Minefield Gym, bench a bunch of Unknown, deal a bunch of damage to the Unknown. Then you use Unknown Z with 0, and you use the Hidden Power attack that moves moves as many damage counters as you want from your Pokemon onto your opponent's active Pokemon. So immediately, you take a knockout with Rocket's Minefield Gym and Unknown 0 because nothing in this cube has that much health. A lot of the time that results in a donk, which is why this deck is called Unknown Donk, because it can do it so incredibly reliably between Unknown C, searching your deck for any unknown. So many unknowns with shuffle that can interchange each other. Pretty much all of the attacking unknowns have shuffle, except for Unknown Zero itself. Double Iris can pull through into the late game, give JL some staying power that Unknown normally struggles with. I would say the two cards that really make the deck flow are Unknown B, which has bounce, shuffles your Unknown back into the deck once per turn. Incredibly powerful with something like Unknown J. Really anything in tandem with Rocket's Minefield Gym. You can bounce your bounces and then play your bounces back down and bounce 2 more unknowns. So you can really realistically get 80 damage in play every single turn with Rocket's Minefield Gym. But even without that, you have other attacks that can set up your board, that can deal damage. So your attackers are the Hidden Power Unknown that essentially has Pichu's Zap, deals damage to Pokemon with powers and bodies. You have the Unknown that has Vengeance, Hidden Power with Unknown V with Hidden Power that deals 10 plus 10 for each damage, or for each Pokemon in your discard. That can get up to 80 damage. It is hard capped, but that's pretty much enough with Iris, or even just in general in this cube. That's a lot of damage. And then you also have the Hidden Power that deals more damage for every card in your opponent's hand, which can also be very relevant, especially when it comes to donks. It's very hard to play your hand down very low if you haven't gotten a turn yet. So lots of things glue this deck together. And another big one, so I said Unknown B already, Unknown Y is the other piece that really keeps it together. On a coin flip, which of course doesn't matter in this cube, you can search your deck for a Psychic Energy and attach it to any of your Unknown in play. So this deck has more or less unlimited acceleration. You're never going to miss an attack because you're low on energy, and that is what keeps it ticking all the way through the game and pushes through to the end.
Yeah, this was just a deck that just caught me by surprise. No idea that this was like the combo deck that it turned into, but we saw multiple people play it. I remember I ran the numbers at one point. I mean, it was in line with a lot of the other mostly played decks. I think it was at like 13% meta share, which is honestly for a deck this complicated, pretty good when you say.
I think there are five unknown decks total, which is amazing because there are like 4 pods.
Yeah.
So there's one pod that had 2 unknown decks, and people willing to play unknown, which is even more impressive to me.
Yeah, the play rate on this deck was just insanely high. And it did win the league in the end, so clearly those people were on the right track, but only JL was able to make it through the top 8.
JL did not lose a set, right? He was uncontested throughout the tournament.
That is correct. JL did not lose a single best of 3.
I knew he went in 6-0 to top 8, so I guess that would mean he was undefeated, right?
Yep.
Can't take any losses there.
I know people took games off of him.
Yeah.
I took a game, I thought. Maybe not. But I know at least a couple of the spread decks took games off of him, but I know in match play he was undefeated.
Which is very impressive. In a cube league setting, that is very difficult.
And this deck is actually critically missing one card, which is an unknown that gives your unknown's bench barrier. Some of the spread decks were some of the best decks in the event, both in top 4 and in the finals.
Yeah, I think he hit both of them, right? He hit did he hit Sednelia and then card CQ?
I think so.
Yeah,
back to
yeah,
back,
that's right.
yeah.
I remember now. Yeah, he definitely hit Sednelia in top 4, and then card CQ was playing a very similar deck in finals. And I didn't get a chance to watch the finals, but I heard they were really close. But that said, any other decks from this cube that you guys want to revisit before we move on?
I don't know if Connor has one. I do have one. Maybe it's the same one that he has, which is the most. I guess the unknown deck is the most surprising to me. But Tumas's Forests of Small Plants deck is just. When I saw that deck, I was like, haha, that's funny. And then it started winning, and I was like, oh no, this is very good. It's so funny that he played just Cherim, which is like the secondary line for both fire and grass, which is your Cherim just buff your other Pokemon and heal your other Pokemon and take weakness off your other Pokemon. But what if they do that for themselves? Then you have a no energy attacker that does 20 or 30 or 40 and heals 20 from anyone. And this is, as Connor said, low power, high power. That's pretty good with no energy. And you have more HP with the flat. You have Celebi Prime, which was the kind of missing piece, not the missing piece, the most important piece for this deck in the beginning. The plan was to Celebi Prime and Time Circle and try to lock the game away. But then Tumas discovered that Charon was just good. Random Pack and Seed Bomb and Solar being like, those attacks are, they're fine, right? But in this deck, they're really good. So that was really funny for me to see. Some other stuff like the Shaman, not the Unleashed, I think. Yeah, Unleashed Shaman. But the other one, the Black Star promo, I have never seen this card. This card is nuts in this cube because you have more HP, you have healing on the attack, you have healing on your other Pokemon, on Pokepowers, on attacks, you have acceleration. So, like, this card's attacking every turn if you want to.
The Shaman here is a really cool card. It was not realized that it was in this cube as well. And the extra heal 20 and the extra damage, the 60 heal 20 on a basic's really strong. I thought this deck was just super cool, super under the radar. Not one I would have pieced together myself, admittedly. And shout out to Tumas. It's a shame that someone here knocked him out of top 8.
Oh, come on. Yeah,
really,
Connor's fire Pokemon are just too strong for those small plants.
Yeah, the fire is definitely something. I mean, it has the other guard, but the Arcanine deck's very fast. Connor, do you have any other thoughts on this deck or any other decks you want to look at before we move on?
So Connor is not here right now. I think his internet died.
Okay, so if he rejoins us, we'll hear from him. But I think we're gonna go ahead and chug right along here, going into our next cube. So something we don't often get to see in a Cube League setting is Mutant. So if you aren't familiar with Mutant, it is a change in evolution rules where like a Trico would evolve into a Grovyle. It changes it, so the Trico can evolve into any grass stage 1. So the Trico could evolve into an Ivysaur or a Cherim. And that really adds a lot of elements to a cube, because usually when you're, from a builder's perspective, when you're looking at a cube, you're looking at what lines work together. So like, will the Venusaur line be on par with the Blastoise line, and so on and so forth. Where in this type of environment, you are looking at the cards themselves. So specifically, like, let's just say that Energy Trans Venusaur is on par with like Deluge Blastoise or something like that, for example. You're looking at the card quality from line to line. But it adds a lot of depth to a cube, and traditionally, Mutant can kind of get unruly with the amount of power it can have, and sometimes that's fun, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's less competitive is probably a better word for it. But this cube itself, this is JL and Mike's Delta Mutant cube, so it has a lot of those Delta species elements to it, but also a lot of low to mid power quality. So it had a very interesting take on Mutant. I'm going to pull it up on the screen here. We can take a look at it. You can tell it's got, instead of the normal like lines you see here, it's just straight grass down the line, fire down the line, water down the line, so on and so forth. And we saw a lot of interesting decks come out of it. There's just a lot of really cool stuff you can pair. And of course, the cubes evolved over time, and this is probably a more updated list than the one we even drafted. But you have a lot of really interesting parts. You look at the Delta Pokemon, like Delta Mewtwo, is a really interesting card. Not only that it has this great ability with Delta Switch, but it's also a fire and a metal type. So you can imagine how that would change the type of cards you're playing and the quality of it. Looking also, you have all of these setup mons. So you look at something like, even like, let's take Dunsparce, not this one, the other one, Strike and Run, which traditionally I don't take as a setup on, but then you use an attack like Strike and Run to get 3 basics and you attach to it, but that can evolve into something like a Porygon or like a Delcatty, or even maybe something like this Dugong here or Eradicate, which can even evolve into something like Salamence Ex. So you can see how the lines in Mutant become really interesting, really versatile, and you can make a lot of unique decks here. Now, Davi, I want to pass it off to you. Do you have any thoughts on this cube in general? Anything you want to share that you maybe thought was really fun or exciting about this?
Yeah, Okay, I'm gonna be real frank here.
Okay.
The first time I looked at this cube, I was like, I don't know if I like Mutant. I've never played Mutant before, so I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna test it. Let's see. I'm gonna play it anyway, so might as well play it before and get used to it. This cube is so fun. This is such a fun cube. You're playing with so many weird cards, something like Starmie Delta Species, which it's not on the cube anymore. It's just, I think, oh no, it is. It's on the metal part. Metal Navigation. It's a card that I always looked at when I was like building cubes or just looking at old cards, and I was like, this card's cool, but like I can see any use for this, like Energy Jump, something like that. In this cube, this card is amazing. Turn 2, you're accelerating, maybe you're collecting if you're playing like a slower game, and turn 3, you have like 3-4 energy in play. If you have an accelerator, God knows how many energy in play you have. Some weird cards like that. I played like I like playing lock decks, so I played a deck that goes turn 1. I had a Caterpie that could evolve in the first turn, so I was like, okay, deal with this Mucky X. Good luck. And then if they dealt with it, okay, deal with this Crobat Delta Species, locking our items in stadiums. And that was my plan. And it's just so fun. It's weird. It's when you play this cube, you kind of get like I don't know if this is the right word, but it's like a culture shock. Where you're like, this shouldn't be like this, but whatever. This is fun. I don't mind.
Kind of turns the cube experience on its head. You know, it's not what you'd expect from like a normal cube.
Yeah, and the things I heard from Mutant cubes where the power level was all over the place and unruly and crazy. This cube is so down to the ground, and the low and mid power nature, and even the Delta Species nature, where like double type cards and like you can evolve some weird stuff like Gyarados Delta Species into a lightning or a metal, or just stay with the Gyarados to use the body, and just some weird cards you would never use in like any other settings. Or not. I played the same deck, the same grass deck I played. Also had Ampharos and Executor, which is like a classic combo in a lot of cubes. So this cube has everything. If you want to play like the Delta Circle combo of old that everyone plays, it's there. You just draft it and go. And if you want to play like Caterpie, Muk, Crobat, good luck. You can also do that. So it was like on Coin Flip Cube, I knew the experience would be cool and different. This one, I was like, this may be weird. I wouldn't like it. I really liked it. It was super fun.
Yeah, I had a really fun experience testing this cube, and also playing in the Cube League. I really liked the diversity in deck building we saw. We saw a lot of different takes on different lines, and I think it's just something you can just do in Mutant. Like in Mutant, it's less about like, okay, I have like a Gyarados line where it's like, no, I have a really good Gyarados and I'm playing it in conjunction with these other cards. So you can mix and match. I feel like there's a lot of depth to it, and especially from like a competitive standpoint, there's so much going on in the gameplay itself. Granted, I was playing a control deck, so my gameplay was probably a bit different than like other decks, but even watching other games, you could tell that there was a bunch of lines of plays you could go for, because when like every Pokemon that evolves in your deck has utility, it changes your strategy, and it gives every deck multiple options just inherently. And I think that's one thing that this definitely does right, is it offers each deck many options, and you can play your evolving basics can have their own unique attacks that they use. Same with your stage 1s and obviously your stage 2s. So you might have multiple wing conditions. Like you might have a Bumblebee that burrows that could deck someone out, but that Bumblebee can evolve into, let's say, a backup Porygon, and now it's a draw Pokemon. So that's just like a slice of the complexity that this Mutant Cube offers. So I was a huge fan. I do want to take the second now to talk about the winning deck here, and that is from Sir Vic. His aggro fighting lock deck, which you can see on the screen, has some pretty notable fighting cards. As you can see, it has Claydol, Medicham EX. I'm sure many people are familiar with those two cards specifically, but it also has this really unique Kabutops with Primal Shell, and Kabutops is often a card that I don't think gets a ton of love. Granted, fossils can be kind of tough to play in any cube setting, but in Mutant Cube, it's just like any other stage 2, and it's got this really, really great power body that allows you to item lock your opponent while it's in the active, and then it also has chop up, which is doing 70, and then 10 spread to the bench with Pokemon damage counters on them. So really solid unit of a card here in conjunction with stuff like Medicham EX, super strong card, super oppressive. It allows you basically to shut down your opponent. And in this version of the cube, EXs could evolve. They can't evolve now, but in the Cube League they could. So you could go into Medicham EX, do Medicham EX things, shutting off your opponent's Pokepower Pokebodies, and using like stuff like Pure Power or Sky Kick, being really oppressive, and then evolve that into something like a Kabutops or Kingdra EX or even an Armaldo. And I guess just talk about the Armaldo as well with Primal Veil, not allowing your opponents to play supporter cards. So to note back to the Kabutops, what Vic could essentially do is choose to lock their opponent either out of items or supporters and really just decide which one would be better for the gameplay itself. Now, the one card I definitely want to bring attention to that is one thing that makes his deck super, super aggressive and super scary is the Salamence with Dragon's Wind, which I think kind of got undervalued a lot, but it ended up, I think, getting cut. Or is it still here? It's still here.
I believe it is cut. We recommended it be cut.
But
Okay.
And Connor is back. Welcome back, Connor. The Dragon's Wind Salamence allows you to bring a Pokemon from the bench to the active when Salamence is in the active. And why that is a big deal is it essentially let Vic slap a Float Stone or on the Salamence, and then whenever someone would knock out something on Vic's active, he would just promote Salamence and be like, all right, now I'm going to bring something up from your active, like maybe your Claydol or your Delcatty. And it gave him so much control of the game. I definitely thought this deck was just a monster. Connor, now that you're back, do you have anything you'd like to share about Vic's deck? Any thoughts on it?
Once again, I have a lot of experience losing to this deck. Just like with JL's, I lost to this deck in best of 3 play twice. I lost in Swiss and in the finals. So I would say the most powerful thing this deck would do is it would go into Medicham early, and then as soon as you were about to knock out that Medicham, it would evolve and then Briny the Pokemon it evolved into. And it would just create this extremely difficult game state where it was hard to get ahead because Medicham was shutting you down. And it was hard to make a lot of plays if they required more than a few cards because Vic would go into Kabutops or Armaldo depending on what the game state looked like. And almost always those cards had a tremendous impact on the game. It was also very, very difficult to come back because of that Dragon Wind Salamence, which I still maintain should be removed, but that's beside the point. That Dragon Wind Salamence wasn't an aggressive card. It was a finisher. And Vic used it very well in that regard. I saw Vic close out many, many games with Dragon Wind Salamence, games against me included. Just the ability to take 4 prizes reasonably, and then take a prize or 2 either off of an EX or 2 separate Pokemon off of Dragon Wind. There was no way to get around it because it just sat on the bench. It had a huge HP total. There was no counterplay. You just sat there and waited to get gusted. And it was very difficult to play against, very difficult to beat. Vic did say that he thought the deck would not be very good without the Claydol. I could definitely agree with that. I think he got a tremendous amount of value out of the card, and it is now not in the cube anymore. So I'd be interested to see how this deck would go moving forward. And but the experience of playing against it was definitely a demoralizing one.
Well said. I would lost to this as well. Yeah, I mean, like it definitely was a all-encompassing dominant deck. So very, very good job to Vic. Vic's definitely been one of the players that has really come out for blood in this season. He followed this up with a finals appearance in the previous league that we're gonna get to. So, I mean, huge shout outs to Vic. Any other decks from Delta Mutant that anyone would like to look at?
If Connor has one, I'll let him go first.
I think I'm all good.
I like every deck here is super cool. I think Mike's Curstone deck was one that I was kind of counting on doing well. I think I put a number 1 on the power rankings, either that or Odysseus's other Medicham EX deck, which in my opinion is the strongest card in the cube. Yeah, I really liked Mike's deck. It was like a double Curse Stone deck with double Versus Seeker. I think he had a way to get the stadium back. I don't remember actually. And oh yeah, it was Nif out Magnum. So like he could get to a game state of like Curse Stone, good luck. Which is not as strong on high power, not high power, sorry, on Mutant, because you can evolve your stuff into cards that don't have Pokebars. But then you're locking your opponent out of things like maybe a Delcatty or like you said, the Clado, which is very, very strong. It just kind of has these weird attackers which are not very good. If you're looking at like the Ludicolo Delta species, it's kind of a card, but when you're locking people and spreading and discarding cards from hand, it can get out of hand. I don't know exactly what happened on Mike's games. I don't know if he like played a few rounds then dropped, or if he played everything and the deck didn't come together. But when I looked at this deck, I was like, huh, this is really cool. Maybe just because of my playing style. Like this also has the Crobat Muck good luck part, and maybe that's not as strong as I wished it was. But when I look at this, I see okay, I want to play in this cube. This looks super fun.
Yeah,
I agree. I thought this deck was threatening on paper, but I ultimately didn't think that it had the teeth to really get through in the end. It seemed to struggle against a fair few strategies, one-shot decks, decks that didn't rely too heavily on EXs, decks that didn't rely too heavily on powers, and I think that was where Mike ultimately struggled. But it was a really cool idea, and I think that a version of this deck could definitely be successful moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
A deck I would like to show off. My deck lists are loading here, is actually Connor's deck from the league, because he utilizes a card that I think often gets underplayed, and that's Salaman's EX. I think Salaman's EX is really good. Not the Dragonlift body lets you retreat any Pokemon that's on EX for free, which in general is just really solid, especially with his deck utilizing stuff like Blaziken and Swampert. Like the mobility you get from just promoting whatever you want and not having to worry about switch as much is just so good. And not to mention, that's just one part of it. Flame Jet allows you to pressure anything on the bench, like a Claydol, or even just taking a snipe knockout on something, so finishing up damage there. So you have that to deal with. And then also Bright Flame does 120, which is a lot of damage for a lot of decks to deal with, especially if your stage 2s don't have a lot of HP. So the Bright Flame is very threatening, and his deck was pretty much built around, he could fire that attack multiple times, and that can be a lot for decks to deal with. He also has one of my favorite cards in the queue, which is Faba, which is kind of funny because Faba on paper doesn't seem that great, but there's a lot of special energy use in the cube, and I think Faba is just insanely oppressive, especially if you can utilize them multiple times. But the Faba itself well-timed Faba can really elevate can really put you ahead in the game. So one of the unexpected cards. And I thought the energy distribution here is honestly on par too. We talked about this actually in the last episode with energy distributions, but I thought this deck did a really good job of balancing its fire and water types. Yeah, I don't know. Busted deck, Connor.
Thank you. I was happy with this one. Coming out of the draft, I was pretty happy. Coming out of testing, I was very not confident.
Right.
But then it pulled through for me in a lot of ways. But this deck I'm actually really proud of because the draft went bad. I did not see a lot of the cards that I wanted. I was struggling very much to find a line that was open. And this is kind of what came out of that. I took a couple of power cards, took the Firestarter Blaziken, I took the Watercall Swampert, and I took the Salamence, and I kind of built a deck around those. And really, Salamence was my first and foremost game plan. I would get into that as fast as possible every single game. Burret was a huge unexpected MVP in this one. Being able to search my single double colorless energy with Scavenger Hunt meant that I could Scavenger Hunt the turn that I evolved it, and usually that would be for a fire energy and discard that off of Roast Reveal, or it could be for an energy to attach for turn. And then the next turn, right before I evolved it into Salamence, I could Scavenger Hunt again for the double colorless, and I could get a turn 3 Bright Flame really often. And that's just a ton of pressure to put on people very, very quickly. It was just overall a great card. A lot of the pieces of the deck ended up working together very well. Things like the Magcargo and the Ninetales, the Milotic providing support, Lapras evolving into other stuff. So I was able to piece together what wasn't an amazing consistency line into something really powerful with the support of the Pokemon going on. Had a few very useful tools and attackers. For Alligator EX was very good in some matchups. I would say Ludicolo was the attacker other than Salamence that I got the most value of across the event. So many matchups just featured an extremely clutch performance from the Ludicolo, being able to get single prize damage out onto EXs or even non-EXs for not too much commitment. It was very nice. And I actually agree with Andrew that Faba was one of my favorite cards in the deck and in the event. It was just incredibly useful. I can't tell you how many times I played the Faba and then VS Seekered for the Faba as well. So powerful. So I don't know. I was just very happy with this deck. A big slop to Charizard Ex card was completely useless. And,
I told you. I did tell you this.
It was a testing motivated decision. Charizard EX was a card that I put in after I tested against Mysterious Player and had fire Pokemon in play with lots of energy and nothing to do with it. And I thought, Burn Down can get some clutch knockouts when nothing else can. And I understand the reasoning for putting it in there. I understand why I put it in there, but it was ultimately not useful to me at all. On the other hand, Crobat G was also a last-minute tech that I really tried to find space for, and that did come in super clutch. So props to Crobat G. But overall, very happy with the deck. I thought I had a solid chance against Vic just because I could play the resistance game very well, but my deck did not want to cooperate, and his really came out swinging quickly in the finals and was not able to respond to that. So overall, very, very happy with the deck's performance, and really, really happy that I was able to build this after the draft went so wrong.
Yeah, I think that's something that it's a good skill to have, is being able to salvage a lackluster draft. And I mean, clearly you got second, so regardless of how poor the draft went, you were able to cobble together a good strategy. And I think that's something that people listen to this, you can definitely don't lose hope. Make the best out of what you got. So that's a good deck with a good story.
Also, be careful with results-based analysis, because this one was like, oh no, this is gonna be bad, and it went good. But yeah, don't just go for I'm gonna draft this exact deck when you can do a bit better on the draft part. On the game part, probably he played perfectly. So
yeah, I don't know why I say that, but
he played good enough.
Good enough, sure.
Well enough for a second.
Anything else on Delta Mutant before we move forward?
This cube made me buy a very beat up copy of Salamence EX from Deoxys because I thought the card was super cool, and now I want to play with it more. That's it.
Worth noting for sure. Yeah, let's chuck it along. So now we're gonna go back to I guess was this March? We fired
March and April, yeah, I think.
April.
So yeah.
Feels like forever ago.
The times where Cube Koga did not exist.
Yeah, we are actually reaching pre-Cube Koga era, which is kind of crazy. Is this it? A lot of these cubes have changed over time, so I have to double check myself. Yeah, let me go try and just put that right back on the screen. So we have, this is Vent's Gen 7 All-Stars Cube. We have a podcast episode talking all about this cube right before the league started. It is a homage to the Gen 7 era, so it has a lot of notable cards that maybe you've seen, or just notable GX Pokemon. And it's more of a mid-power based cube, despite it having GXs. So you see a lot of the influence when you see stuff like Decidueye GX and Vikavolt GX. Those kind of things. But you also have stuff like Garbodor here is very popular during the Gen 7 TCG era. And just a lot of GXs and stuff. So it's more of we classify it more as a high power cube because it has some big attacks, big HP, some big damage. But it led to a lot of really cool decks coming out of it. We saw some really cool Dark Box decks. We saw Empoleon. We saw I mean, I think White on Ice had like the epitome of Decidueye, had all the Decidueyes come together. So some cool stuff here. Fellas, any thoughts on Gen 7 Cube? Starting with Davi.
Um, I think this may be one of my most played cubes together with Connor and maybe the other admins. We tested this for so long, for weeks and weeks and weeks. We tested this cube to get it ready for Cube League. We played like Vikavo decks, Raichu decks. I played like 3 or 4 times, I think, 1 week before the league started. So I was coming to this league like with a lot of knowledge about this cube, and this is a really fun one. I think it's up there on my most favorites high power cubes, which is not something that I really like. I preferred the low power, but this one is the one I had a lot of fun, and it's just generally super cool. If you're some people think about Gen 7 and they go like, oh yeah, my Malamar deck, yeah, it's there, just draft Malamar. It's gonna be really hard, but if you really want to, you can force a Malamar. Or if you went to that League Cup with Metagross GX like I did and went like, oh, 3 drop, go lunch early, you can do that here too. Because
with the old glory.
Yep. Some of the cards that were not played also pretty good in this, like the Vikavo Gx, which is not a great card by itself. Like it has big attack, discard energy, attach energy, spread. When you read the card, you're like, this is not great. But then you read Charjabug, the Charjabug from I think Unbroken Bonds that has battery. You can attach multiple energy per turn. So this Vikavolt is getting that 4 energy attached to themselves like really, really fast. And one of the first tests, I think Zach Crackler had just like the unstoppable Vikavolt deck. We had to nerf it to the ground, and it still ran well in the league. I don't remember if it got to any decent placements or it was like middling or something okay. But it's still really cool to play the deck. It's something that different from like the Metagrosses and the Malamars and the Lycanrocs. Something that wasn't played back then, but it's there. It's a card from Sun and Moon, and you should like take a look and play it, just like the Blazikins and the Swamperts. Some of the lines were changed from the Cube League. This used to have Como as the Dragon line, which was like this really aggressive turn 2 rare candy to combo into like 160, I think it was the damage either 160 or 180. And also the 180, yeah, it's just 2 for 180. It's pretty good on the second turn. And it had some crazy ways to evolve also. The Dark Box deck on this league, I thought that it would win everything. Just when I saw that deck list, it was Electrode with Guzzlord and the Weavile to move the energies. It was so fun to look at that deck list. Probably not fun to play against it. I thank God I didn't. I don't know. This cube is like sometimes when I play high power, I don't have fun. Exactly. I feel like I'm on a race, and sometimes I win and sometimes I lose, and I don't have a lot of control over the race. But in this one, I felt a lot of control over the games I played, at least. I know that some of the decks were stronger and some were weaker, and that the winning deck on this Cube League was not something that you think about when you think of high power GX Cube. It was something else that I really like.
Yeah, going right into that, we had the Empoleon deck from here with the cargo. So it's like Ludicargo, but instead of Lucario, you have Empoleon. So using a lot of that Total Command, and the finals of this actually are on the YouTube channel, so you can go and watch it. But it was a very strong deck, had extreme consistency, and it was just one of the most insane stage 1 decks, or stage 1 prize decks to come from it. Had some really good cards like Acerola, being able to heal a lot of the field, and Cynthia Caitlyn also to reuse that. Stuff like Kukui, giving it the extra damage it needs to reach for some of those bigger knockouts with a Total Command, as well as Choice Band as well. Not to mention the Shrine of Punishment, really good for setting up knockouts. So just a very good, coherent deck that we had here. And honestly, one that was really good that got through the tournament. It really, decisive finals. It was up against the Blaziken deck. And I think it just played the field really well. Guys, any thoughts on this before we move on?
This was a very honest deck that did very unfair things.
I think that's fair.
Connor, have you played Ludicargo at all, like in 2005 or 2006 format?
I have. I used to own the World's deck. I think I own about 50 out of the 60 cards still. I don't know
Okay.
where the rest is. Um, this definitely felt like that.
Yep.
Once again, experience losing to this one. I think I have experienced losing to every single deck we're going to talk about today.
Oh
What an
no.
honor.
I lost to this deck twice as well. Lost to this in Swiss and then lost to it in top 8. In this case, I knew that my matchup was bad going in, whereas in the previous cases, I thought I had a shot at winning. I still think I had a shot, but it did not come together in those instances. Yeah, this deck was just amazing. I mean, it's so straightforward, and it really just does what it aims to do. But what it aims to do is so good that that's all it needs. Total command dealing at least 100 damage, most likely going to be dealing 140 to 160 damage. So incredibly powerful with countercatcher, especially hitting that Dedenne, or the countercatcher and the boss. You know, hitting Dedenne, hitting Lele so consistently for double prize knockouts when this deck is very often only giving single prize knockouts at a time. Attack command being a very nice power, having a very nice power, and also having a very nice attack in terms of 2 shots. Recall on the last Empoleon, hitting for snipe attacks on bench sitters. You know, things like Mag Cargo, things like setup basics. I know in my case, I was not actually able to get a one-shot on an Empoleon because if I ever tried to set up double Lurantis, all he had to do was use Recall and snipe a single Lurantis, and my ability to one-shot Empoleons was basically dead for the rest of the game. The angles of this deck were so deeply unfair, even though it is such a straightforward concept. And I think that it's been nerfed in some way since the cube was run, but
Empoleon does not exist anymore. It's Swampert.
that is a pretty significant nerf, I would say. But yeah, really, really strong deck. I think the only I know Mysterious Player had an Empoleon in their deck, but I know the only dedicated Empoleon deck to make top 8, and maybe the only dedicated Empoleon in the event.
Yeah. Yeah, I
It
think it
wasn't
was.
an archetype that people expected, right? At least I didn't. I played in one of my many runs through this cube, and I thought it was fine. And then when I looked at it, the list, I was like, yeah, this looks fine, looks okay. It's probably gonna lose to like the dark box decks or something, and it didn't. It won against them, so it was super underrated. Like that was JL just looking at the lines and going, this is good, and probably staying open and getting the line that it's underrated and super good.
Yeah. I definitely expected Empoleon to be powerful going into the event. I guess the community didn't share that sentiment. I don't know. I didn't think it was that big a secret that Empoleon was really good, but and then in power rankings, I either gave JL number 1 or number 2. I think I gave him number 2 behind Blue Cheesecake because I think Blue Cheesecake's deck was still really, really good. But I was not surprised in any way to see this deck win the event. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, this is just about every single thing you would want in a deck like this.
Yep, definitely. I guess that just leaves one more cube remaining, and it is the Delta's EV Cube, the cube that's coming up this weekend for Champs Cube. This is the very first one we ran for this league, and I honestly have a lot of fun memories of this. This is like one of the first ones I played in returning to the Discord, and I just had a ton of fun with it. It has a lot of varieties here. Basically, the whole stage 1 lines are just EVs. So you have Espeon, Flareon, the whole 9 are all here. You get to start out with evolution with EVs in your draft. So that's a really cool aspect to it. The other thing that's really cool is that this cube has custom cards. Let me see if I can find them on the screen. But basically, it takes advantage of sort of a mutant style, but not in the broad sense. So you have stuff like, let's take Mutant Drink, for example, which is like an Evo Soda for a Delta Pokemon. So you can choose one of your non-EX Delta Pokemon in play and search for a Delta Pokemon the next stage. So it lets you kind of pseudo-mutant evolve between Deltas. You have stuff also like Mutant Candy, which is an aspect in this cube, but it allows you to kind of just do a similar thing. Choose a Delta Pokemon in play, search your deck for search your deck for a Delta Pokemon, Evolution Pokemon, put it onto that one. And it has like certain restrictions with that. And there's a lot of variants out there. You got Mutant Gene, which is kind of like a tool card that allows you to do mutant evolution. So it's a way to sort of add a unique element to it, but the cube's just really fun. Gentlemen, any thoughts on it? Let's start with Connor this time.
All right. So this cube is a favorite of mine for sure. Also, spoiler alert, have experience losing to the winner of this one, so I'll have more
I'm noticing a trend. No, I'm kidding.
But, if I can't have the winning deck, at least I'm losing to the winning deck.
Fair enough.
This cube is just so much fun. There's so many different ways you can go with it. The balance has reached a point that is really brilliant. I even think the first time we ran it, the balance was really excellent, aside from just a couple of cards that have now all left the cube. So this is shaping up to be one of the few cubes where I think you could draft any line or archetype and win the cube, which I think is just such a rare occurrence, and one that I'm always really happy to see. So super cool. And just lots of cool strategies going on. I don't know, it's very traditional in a lot of senses, where it has a Sceptile, Typhlosion, Ampharos, Gardevoir, all these are very common lines, but the Delta element and the evolution element makes it such a fresh experience. And it's a lot of the cards that are being played in it are commonly seen in other cubes, but the power level is at such an interesting point that they feel fresh, even though you've seen the cards played many times. So I really enjoy this cube. Super excited to be playing it for champs, and I'm excited to hear what you guys say about it as well.
So, it's funny when you think about the balance, and I think this cube is definitely so balanced. It has a lot. All the lines play really nicely together. I definitely echo the same thoughts. But what I'm about ready to show you may scare you. Here is the most broken deck I have ever seen. Best Palau's Broken Box. So many cards in this deck are not even in the cube anymore, such as the Fion, Whirlpool Section, Espeon EX is no longer in the cube. This Vaporeon with Muddy Water is no longer in the cube. I don't think Toxicroak G is also in the cube anymore.
Ampharos with Damage Bind also out.
Yeah, the Damage Bind.
Vibrava, thank God.
Vibrava with Energy Typhoon, which was one of the most busted cards we've ever seen. Not to mention, take notice, there are 8 Poké-Drawlers in this deck. 8 of them.
This deck on its own contains 10 removed cards.
Yes. 10.
4 Poké-Drawers, because you can't play 8 anymore. Ampharos Damage Bind, Espeon EX, 11 actually. Vaporeon with Muddy Water, Chain Evolution Eevee, Toxicroak G, Flygon Rising Rivals, and Vibrava.
Oh my god.
All of those cards are now gone.
It was one of the most disgusting decks we've seen, and it rightfully won. Best Pal did a great job with this one. This one really turning some heads, to say the least. Guy, any thoughts on this? I know we've kind of cracked open all the brokenness of this deck, but 8 Poké-Drawlers, no item search. I think that's kind of interesting. Besides the Poké-Drawer, of course.
I don't need item search.
Exactly.
I have never felt more helpless in the finals of an event than against this deck. You're playing a normal game, Al starts off with a Vaporeon that's way better than any of your attackers, but you're like, okay, I can cope with this. Most of the decks in the event had at least one broken card. I've dealt with plenty of these decks, this is fine. And then he does stuff like, so turn 1 he goes Vaporeon, and then turn 2 he goes devolve your benched Quilava into a 40 HP Cyndaquil, and then snipe out the Cyndaquil, and then at the end of the game you're like, okay, I finally cobbled this game back together, I just need to take a couple more prizes and I'm fine. And then there's this Vibrava just sitting on the bench staring at you like, I know I have 160 damage just waiting. And it was just a totally defeated experience. I was doing so many silly things to play around this stupid Vibrava, and it ultimately did not matter because I wasn't able to get there in the end.
Wow, that was therapeutic.
Yep.
I had the same problem. It's like, oh my gosh. So there's always something waiting for you to knock you out. If it's between the Vibrava, the Espeon Devolve, the Fion to bring something up, And the one of the most disgusting combos was this Damage Bind with Curse Stone. I'm with you. I felt so defeated. You have Claydol in play, you're trying to draw, and then they're just like, all right, Curse Stone, Damage Bind, you're done, bud. And also it's going to get knocked out later. It's like, oh no, that's so sad. This deck was way too good. I was personally annoyed by the Leaf Guard Leafeon because I was playing Kingdra, and nothing feels worse than having to discard 2 cards in your deck to do 20 damage. He got me with that with the Leaf Guard. So
Nice
good.
horsey you have there.
Yep, it was a very sad matchup to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah, this deck is, I think it's up there with the Gyarados deck, the 6 Magikarp deck, of like the most
infamous.
broken decks we've ever seen. Something that should never be repeated and probably will, like sometime in the future. I hope that's long, far away from now. But I think I was on the finals with you for this, maybe, for commentating, and it was like, this is impossible. This is not happening.
Yeah.
This deck, that Vaporeon is a Buzzwole, that Vibrava is a Vespiquen. Yeah, it's not happening. Not gonna happen. Sorry.
It's so true, and this I felt like Vibrava was even scarier than Vespiquen because Al actually had to do nothing at all for the Vibrava.
That's true.
The Vaporeon Buzzwole comparison is spot on though, and really it's like. Man, if Buzzwole was guaranteed to be playing against a deck with 40 to 60 HP basics every game.
Yeah, it would essentially just be this card. Yeah. But the cube's it's gone through a lot of changes since, and I think it's in a really good place for this weekend. And if you're here and you aren't playing in it and you want to watch, definitely come check out the stream. It'll be a lot of fun. I'm really excited to see what decks come out now that the broken box is no more.
Yeah, it's very interesting. 11 cards out of this deck would no longer be legal, and 7 of them are just outright removed, not counting the Pokéjar pluses, of course. But other than that, there were not a lot of changes made. Flagon EX Delta also came out. Typhlosion EX came out, which I totally agreed with. And just a few cards here and there. There were no lines changed there. Overall, it was just a line topper here and there, and a little bit of a rules change, and we now have a cube that I would say is exceptionally balanced. So, very excited. Even in the first run, aside from this deck existing, I thought the first run was really nice, really well balanced as well, and very excited to see where the cube goes, how Champs goes, given that it's seen those balance changes.
Yeah, well said. So I think that's gonna wrap this segment up. This is all of the cubes we've been looking at. If you saw any cubes that you thought were interesting, let us know in the comments. When we come back, we're gonna be taking any questions from chat on Champs Cube. Any questions for there is also just wrapping things up and getting ready for Champs. So stick around. We'll be right back. All right. So if you're in chat and you have any questions that you want to shoot us about Champs Cube, about any of the Cube League stuff that we've talked about, let us know. This will be our chance to at least help you prepare a little bit if you're playing Champs Cube. If you want to watch Champs Cube, of course, make sure to tune in. I can't say that enough. But while all those questions are coming in, Davi, anything going on? What's going on in your life?
Oh my God!
How's it
what
in
do
Brazil?
I talk here? Yeah, about that. Doing not great as always. Just Brazil things. Not gonna talk politics here, but I guess Brazil politics is like just a big meme on the internet. Always has been. Some of the crazy stuff that happens here. Not gonna go too deep into that, but yeah, living in Brazil is crazy. You turn on the TV and you go like, what? Again? Oh, come on. Okay. Yeah, aside from that, I think one of the things I wanted to talk here, I played a game, I think it was January or December, called Mori, and like it's one of those games that you play and kind of not changes your life, like crazily changing your life, but like slowly it kind of gets into you and like the way you think, the way you look at things, the way you like enjoy the things you enjoy, and yeah, that was really powerful from like a kind of a small indie game that I watched trailers for in 2014, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll play this, and like I have it tattooed. I finished the game and I was like, sure, I'll get a tattoo, like right now. I want this with me forever. If I ever forget it, I'm gonna look at myself and go, oh yeah, that was pretty good, wasn't it? So
What's the name of the game again?
Omori. So it's
Omori.
Omori. Yeah.
I mean to check out the game. I think it was on sale on Steam like a month ago. I definitely want to check it out because you talk about it for so much, and
Yeah.
it sounds really good. So
Mm-hmm.
you'll have to keep me honest about that to remind me to play it because it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. Sure. I'll remind you to play it like every month. Then okay.
Word. Sounds good. Connor, anything with you? Anything new?
So I made I think I talked about Pokemon Unite being super fun in the last episode.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it did just come out. Yeah. So it's still super fun. Made it to Master Ball tier. I was very proud of that. And then also made Legend in Hearthstone a couple weeks later. Was very proud of that as well. I don't know. I've been doing very poorly in the cubes that I've played lately, so it's really nice to have solace in other things.
No. Oh no.
Fair enough. I know I've been cubing IRL a lot. I mean, I guess we've been cubing IRL a lot over here.
Yeah, we cubed IRL last night as of the recording of this episode. Again, did very poorly. I went 1.
So, but it's
What
been
cube
fun.
did you play? I want to know that.
We did my IRL one.
Oh, okay.
the
Okay.
Grover
Okay.
Cube, which was fun. It was really cool. I love being able to get to back together with friends and cube again. Although, IRL cube. I know we did an episode on IRL cubing, but like, man, it just is so different from like a cube building perspective, from a draft team perspective. Like from a cube building perspective, like oh my gosh, I forgot how awful it was to update a cube. Especially when you've updated one so much over like the pandemic. I had to make a lot of changes. I had to like go back through the cube, sort it, then look at Cube Koga, and then figure out what like lines change, make proxies. Like this is a lot of work when I could just export to a Google Sheets. But alas, it's what we do. And I mean, like it's just one of those things, not necessarily evil. But that's been a ton of fun, and I've just been playing a ton of Battlegrounds. I'm like addicted to Battlegrounds now. as most people I've talked to are from Hearthstone.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
I know I talked about it on the podcast. I don't know, a month or 2 back. So play it.
It's so much fun, especially like cubing. It's free, so you can just download it and have fun. I mean, I like it because I feel like it's a game that I keep thinking is like luck based, and then I find out how bad I am at it, and I'm like, oh, actually, I'm losing because I'm bad. Oh, cool. All right. And it's I don't know. It's a weird way to explain it, but like I found myself finding new ways to get better, and I think that's all I really need to get hooked on a game is like a lot of skill ceiling. So, and it does have those high rolling aspects to it. I mean, it is a game with variance, of course, but there's a lot of factors that go into it. So if you haven't played it yet, I highly recommend it. It looks like we are getting some questions in chat, so we can take some time to answer those. Bubbles Ryu asks, what's your favorite line to put in a mid-power cube? Connor, as someone with a mid-power cube, I'm going to let you answer that.
All right, there is only one true answer to this question, and it's Dusknoir.
I thought it was Ampharos.
The best line for mid-power. Hands down, no question, it has to be Dusknoir. You have amazing cards, you have great options, so many cool things going on, no boring cards whatsoever. Just don't put in Sinister Hand and you're golden.
Yeah, Sinister Hand would not be mid-power.
Yeah, you know, half of the Dusknoirs are very high power, so definitely, exercise a degree of restraint there.
For sure.
But in general, Dusknoir, I would say Dusknoir is not only my favorite mid-power line, but it's my favorite line in any cube. I am very strongly predisposed to try to draft Dusknoir if it exists in a cube.
If Regigigas is a line, Regigigas level X is a line, I would say that because I just love Regigigas level X.
Oh my god!
If it's not a line, I would say I'm a huge fan of Kingdra. I love, especially in Connor's cube. I'm a huge fan of Spray Splash and the Prime. I just love spread. Davi, what about you? What's favorite?
I have two answers here. One of them is if I go to a cube that I've never looked at, I don't know what the cube is. There's a 50% chance that I get my first pack and I see Emareep. So Ampharos is everywhere. I'm probably putting that on everywhere because that's just how it is. Not because I like it, just it's a reality of the situation. You gotta play Ampharos once in your lifetime to get like down to the ground, know how it works, and then you're good to go forever. Because every cube you ever play will have Ampharos in it. That's not my true answer. My true answer is actually Empoleon. Empoleon works really well in like low mid high. I really like the different like things you can do with it. You can play like a spread kind of not tempo, like really slow deck with like dual splash 30-30 Aqua Jet, hoping that you get the heads, and 70-30, I guess. I think 70-20 maybe. You can go a bit higher on the high power and start playing stuff like Attack Command. And if you go really high, you can play Total Command and Recall. I think the line is just so cool to play. It's not that common because Water has a lot of good stage shoes. Like I said, that the Kingdra's there. Kingdra and Empoleon are really good, like really cool for mid power. I personally really like Empoleon level X. Like the things you can do with that card are crazy. I've seen super fast decks that want to put that card in like immediately and try to control. Decks that go super slow, and Empoleon from Majestic Dawn kind of hit something really fast, really hard, maybe dual splash a little bit. And I don't know, I just really like it, and I'm also a bit predisposed of looking at a Piplup on the first pack and going, oh, okay, I know what I want.
Yeah. No, Empoleon's a sick line. I definitely like seeing Empoleon work in different cubes.
I have a few honorable mentions as well.
Go for it.
Okay.
So I have 3 honorable mentions. And I'm specifically avoiding SP Pokemon because there's another question about SP Pokemon later in the chat. But Hippowdon, especially with a level X, that line is so cool and extremely underplayed. Love that line. So Hippowdon, put Hippowdon in your cubes. I will be very inclined to play them. Gliscor.
Oh yeah.
On the contrary, don't put Gliscor in your cubes because it will probably be broken, but man, is it fun, and I love playing that card. Gliscor level X specifically, all the other ones are trash, not worth it. Cresselia level X is another card that I absolutely love because it is so splashable, yet so neat and so interesting to try and get it to work. Try and get those moon skips off. It's just such an interesting, such a great card. I love it so much. I wish more cards were designed like it. High cost attack with a really strong upside, nice power. There's just so much going on with Cresselia level X. I love that card. That's why I've got it in my cube. I know Slower Car's got it in his cube. It's just a great time. So strong recommendation there.
Yeah, that carried me hard on the last Champions Cube. I got some crazy moon skips, getting like a lockup to try to get something locked in the active, and like 2 of the not shady move Pokepower, but basically shady move, and try to like math your way out to a moon skip and go for 2 prizes at the same time and kind of turn the game on its side. Yeah, I really like that card.
Yeah, that card's sick. I like that you can also get your prizes with it. So like, if you opponent ever plays into it, like you can get like a really insane moonskip turn. Yeah, I really like Cresselia level X as well. Skier 007 wants to know, is, I'm assuming, Misty's Wrath better than Admin? They need to know. Gentlemen, any thoughts? Wrath over Admin.
I have strong thoughts on this, but I will let other people go first before I get into it.
Okay, I'm gonna go first here. Mrs. Wrath has never won me a game. Rocket's Admin has won me like too many games to count. It's Zen, right? It's Zen, it's Admin. If you play it right, if you know how to not waste your resources, and if you have like a decent draft where you don't need to use your Admin early, this card just wins you games. Like, why wouldn't you play Admin? Like, Mrs. Ref is fine. It's fast. It's really good. Like, it's just 1 tier down because Admin just wins games. Easy. And I know that Connor doesn't think that, so go.
Yeah, I have very tepid thoughts on it, so I have nothing really to say.
Connor, you're muted, I think.
I will say, I think Admin. I would take Admin over Misty's Wrath if it was like a pack of one situation. But if my deck was reliant on heavy discard, I would take Wrath over it.
Of course.
It would depend on my situation. But I think it was like pack one, pick one. I would personally take admin over Wrath, even though I do see the value in Wrath. I really think Chain Disruption is a very important component of decks. But
Yeah.
Connor, if you were with us,
Strong disagree. I actually think that I would always take Wrath over admin pack one, pick one.
I knew this was coming.
I also knew this was coming.
Okay. So, in a more tame sense, Wrath is a disgustingly powerful card. Okay, you are not discarding your hand. You keep the same hand you have, and you're digging 7 cards deeper into your deck, and you get 2 of them. It's so strong. Misty's Wrath, of course, have a significant downside in discarding the other cards, but if you prepare properly for this, especially pack one, pick one, which is why I said Misty's Wrath always over admin pack one, pick one. If you prepare for this in the sense that you draft plenty of recovery, then there's very little downside to Misty's Wrath. It's just an insane card. Every time I see an opponent play Misty's Wrath, I'm like, oh my gosh, their turn is going to be insane. But every time I see an opponent play admin, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, you know, if I'm getting admin to 1, I'm like, it's kind of itchy. But if I see my opponents play admin or play Wrath, I'm always just dreading whatever comes next. In the same respect, I will always take admin over, or I will always take Wrath. Goodness, I don't know why these are so easy to confuse in my head. I will always take Wrath over admin because it makes your deck so much more explosive, so much more threatening. Now, if it's not pack one, pick one, it changes. If you have a lot of very valuable one-ofs, Wrath gets a lot worse. If you have very powerful Pokemon-based draw and other decks in the cube do not, then admin has a lot of value because you can admin players low and draw out of it, and your opponent is less likely to be able to do so. Now, if the cube just has lots of Pokemon-based draw in general, then admin is a much weaker card because it's very likely your opponent will be able to draw out of it. So it depends heavily after pack one, pick one on what your deck is and what the cube looks like. But in a vacuum, pack one, pick one, Misty's Wrath, definitely better. In higher power, as the power level gets higher, Misty's Wrath gets even better. So in high power, Misty's Wrath, absolutely nuts. In low power, you can probably get by without it, and I'd probably take the admin. Pack one, pick one, it's hard to justify anything over Wrath, except for maybe like Oak or something.
Pidgeot from
yeah, I'd take Pidgeot over Wrath.
Sure.
I would. But yeah, so admin is overrated. Don't let people tell you otherwise. Definitely take Misty's Wrath in more situations than you're currently taking Misty's Wrath, and your decks will be better.
That is
Oh,
your elevator pitch, Misty's Wrath. Oh, honestly, very well said.
I want to sit down by Connor's side on every cube we play so I can get that spicy pack 2 admin.
Yes.
Every
I mean,
time.
well, I mean, if I see the Misty's Wrath, but I mean, I do still think admin's a very good card. Don't get me wrong.
No, you have to get on the bit. You have to continue the bit.
Yeah, so Davi gets to pick 2 admin, I get to pick 1 Misty's Wrath. This is the agreement that we've come to.
What do I get?
I mean, my decks with Misty's Wrath in them,
Oh, okay.
I think in the Cube League, I can at least name off the top of my head a first, a second, and a top 4 that all have Misty's Wrath. As soon as you put that card in your deck, you have so much more potential to be explosive. It's just nuts.
Okay, counterpoint. Every top 8 deck in RSPK Cube has an admin. What do you say about that?
I would say that there is no Misty's Wrath in RSPK Cube.
Oh, you got him.
You don't need to say that, but sure, okay.
Also, aren't there like 8 admins or 16 or something in that
No,
cube?
12.
Every deck has admin in that cube.
Exposed.
I don't like your arguments, okay?
Bubbles Ryu wants to know our favorite SP card. I would say oh gosh, I'm blanking. What's the main bird? Staraptor. Staraptor FB level X. Great card.
Broken card, of
Friendship
course.
over.
All right, Connor, what's your favorite?
Staraptor FB level X is really cool level X, but it broke my cube and I don't like it.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. Thanks for that. That was really
so
good.
I have 2 favorites, and then an almost favorite. My almost favorite is Blaziken FB level X. I just really like the design. But my 2 favorites are Absol G level X and Gallade 4 level X. They are two cards that don't win the game on their own, like Luxray or Garchomp, but they can be very aggressive, very powerful, and they're excellent in certain strategies. Gallade's power is really nice. I feel like it's exceptionally balanced on a Pokemon that has to be active when it, quote unquote, evolves. All of its attacks are interesting. None of them just get crazy damage on their own, but they all have a lot of great potential. Chop up, 70 damage for 2 energy just spread out on the board. Aimed Cut, of course, has tons of potential for one-shots with enough spread. Just really love that card. And then Absol G level X, the power can be devastating if you hit the right cards. Not so fun to be on the receiving end of that, but it is cool. And with things like Special Dark, Dark Claw, Darkrai level X, all these different dark buffs, Absol G level X can see a level of damage and aggression that it wasn't able to see when it was legal and standard because those kinds of decks didn't really exist. So, strong supporter of Absol G level X as well. Gavi, please go ahead.
Yeah, Absolute G level X. Like Darkness Sand won me so many games. I think once against you, Connor, it milled like your rescue stretcher that you needed like 5 turns after.
I bet you're probably correct, but Last Champs is a blur, and all I really remember it for is my deck being horrendously inconsistent.
Oh yeah, it was Cube League, not Champs, I think, or even
yeah,
Teams, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember. I
no
played.
idea, probably.
I played with Absol G like twice on your cube. It's so fun. I really like that card. My favorite SP card, I don't know if this counts, but screw it, it counts. It's Power Spray. How can you not say Power Spray? Like,
some people
on
just
my
like
cube,
watching the world burn.
on my cube, we don't have a lot of SPs. My IRL cube. But I was like, we don't need SPs. Let's just play with this. Like, that card broke so many decks. It's so fun to, like, your opponent's, like, thinking, looking at their deck, and, like, okay, I'm gonna, like, Ultra Ball for this and, like, Quick Search for this. Nope. It's so fun. It's like you're playing a one-of magic. A one-off counter spell in your deck, in any deck on my cube. It was so fun. It was so broken. It was not... I don't recommend for anyone to do this. It's not fun. I mean, it's fun. It's not balanced at all.
But it is fun to play Power Spray.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's 50% fun of the players are having a lot of fun. So I think that's pretty good. If you don't count Power Spray, I think I'm just gonna go with Absol for the same points that Connor made. The card has carried me hard on his cube. So Darkness Slugger is really, really good. Don't underestimate.
So I think this will be the last question we take here before we sign it off here. Bubbles, you ask, are there any new trainers in the Battle Stars Block and On that you're interested in putting in your cubes? Seeing other stuff like Xana's Resolve, Stormy Range, Fashion Mall, Fog Crystal, Flannery, Peony, etc. So I've messed around with a few of these actually and updating my cube. I think that obviously Fog Crystal is a good buff for Psychic. Peony's kind of weird. I get it mixed up with the other one that lets you switch cards from your prizes. I think the card that lets you switch cards from your prizes is pretty good in cube. I don't think it's on par with Azelf, but like it has utility. The cards I'm really excited for are in the new set. I think Stormy Range is a great buff to Lightning decks as like a Brooklet Hill for Lightning decks, and I think not to mention you get stuff like the new Mareep as well for if you want some sort of acceleration engine other than Eels. So, but I think the Stormy Range also, if you have Dragon archetypes like my cube, I have Hydreigon and Raichu and Alolan Golem. Like those 3 decks get so much utility out of just being able to find basics. So I think that's really cool. I don't think Xana's Resolve is as good as Steven's Advice, but I do love the fact that it's another good supporter that we're getting. I think it's a good way to just draw cards, and it adds more uniqueness to some of the supporter lines. I think it's a good addition to cubes. Fashion Mall, I'm iffy on because it depends on the tool quality and how much like I see it being more abused with like Cessation Crystal, so I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I wouldn't put Fashion Mall on my cube just because I'd worry about like Cessation Crystal, Fashion Mall, put Cessation Crystal back in my hand, use my ability, and then Cessation Crystal.
My God.
I also I have Grabotoxin in my cube, so like that's also the same story. It's like I could not do that, but it is a neat card though. I'll give it that. I don't know if I want to put it in my cube. I would not put it in the same queue with Cessation Crystal. I will say that. And other new cards that we've gotten, I'm trying to think of other ones that we've gotten. We've gotten a lot. I will say there are several cards that I'm looking forward to in the new set, and like the trolley that lets you pull back 2 Pokemon with 90 HP. I think that card is super good. Especially in like mid power cubes, but even like if you have like a stage 1 line with like 90 HP, or even like stuff like Delcatty or Porygon, if they get knocked out, you can pull back the line. Be really excited to see that, something like Delta Mutant where you have like multiple lines you can use it with. The toy catcher that pulls up I think a Pokemon with I think 40 or 50 HP. That's a really cool card. Could be really useful pulling up little basics. But it's not like, inherently broken. At least I don't think it would be. It might be broken in my little cup cube, but I think overall that card is really interesting. I'm super excited for the cards that are coming out in the new set that are the Evolving Skies. I think those are really cool. Connor, Davi, any other thoughts on upcoming cards? Did I miss any you guys are looking forward to?
You brought this up, but Rescue Trolley is the card. It is like the thing that dreams are made of. Like that one card gives me hope for the future of cubes in modern sets.
Yeah, that card's so cool.
My favorite cards coming out of the newer sets have been Clara. I've really loved playing with that card. I've played in a bunch of cubes that have that already. Really, really like it. And Path to the Peak in a lot of cubes. I mean, you can play Path to the Peak in old DX cubes even, and it's cool. So, neat card. And I mean, there have been a lot of good, of course, outside of the Pokemon sphere, because we don't like to talk about Pokemon that come out now. There have been lots of very cool cards that have come out, but interested to hear your take as well, Davi.
Yeah, I think Clara is a card that I expect to see in every cube ever that is not like a block cube. That card is so strong. I first picked that card over a lot of other cards. Usually having like a supporter that you can either Paw Pad or Versus Seeker or sometimes Dowsing Machine. That's such a strong effect if you have like I don't know, a Manectric EX deck that wants to use Manectric EX forever. You can start doing that forever with Clara. I've been doing that on Highlander Cube. It's so fun. Clara is super good. One of my favorite cards like ever from using it on cubes. I also really hyped for Stormy Range for different reasons, because when you think about Delta species, Stormy Range gets some weird cards like Dratini has a lightning, Beldum has a lightning, Charmander has a lightning, some other like weird cards that I'm totally gonna forget have some of these weird types on the Delta species sets. So that card I also kind of expect to see in every cube. Kinda. I guess the ones without dragons, the card may get a little strong because the lightning deck will get too strong. But in a cube with a lot of different types, I expect to see the card in the same way that I see Brucalotel on every cube ever. So I guess those are the two main ones. The rest of the cards you all talked about it, and I'm surely putting Fashion Mall with Cessation Crystal on my cube. Like, I see no problem in that. I'm gonna make some people cry.
RSPK cube? Is that
no, my God, no.
Yeah.
Please don't. Yeah, probably my RLL cube. Not sure about Highlander. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm interested to see like how these cards get into different cubes, like what people do with them. Yeah, I forgot Clara. I can't believe I forgot Clara. I think that card is so great. I mean, you guys already talked about it, but I haven't played Clara in like in various decks already. Like it feels so good. It's the best of Rescue Stretcher and I guess Energy Retrieval System. The card's not that great, but it just allows you to like recycle like really efficient attackers. It's just got such a nice quality to it. I really am a fan of it. I guess anything else for the good order, and I guess everyone watching, so thank you so much for watching. The Cube League has been phenomenal this go around, and I am always taken aback how it continues to grow, and we see so much stuff coming through the league each time, and I'm really looking forward to this Swan Song tournament with Champs Cube. All the players have worked super hard for it. It's definitely something that I look forward to seeing play out here. Gentlemen, any final thoughts before we close this one out?
I'll let Connor go ahead.
Just very excited for champs. I've been really happy with how the season has gone. People have been really engaged, really involved. It's just been a great season. We've played a ton of fantastic cubes, and excited to see the culmination in champs.
Mm-hmm. I'm losing sleep over champs either because of anxiety or over a lot of things to do. But I'm really hyped for it. Also, it's the thing I look forward all year long. And last time it was a blast. I was playing last time. I think I was 5th. This time I'm gonna cast it, so it's gonna be even more cool for me. I love casting games. I love looking at different decks and different players and some crazy plays and on the stream. I'm super hyped. I cannot say this enough. For Saturday to play but to watch this. It's gonna be the best.
Yeah, and just a reminder that it's going to be at 11:30 a.m. Central Time with the draft, pre-recorded, of course. But if you have some time to come tune in, come watch and enjoy. It's gonna be a lot of fun for the Cube experience. Of course, VODs will be up on the YouTube channel, but I think that is going to do it for this episode here. Once again, thank you so much for everyone who's watching live on Twitch. We love to have you guys. You've been listening to P Cube, the one and only Pokemon Cube podcast. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.